On this episode of Purposely Curious, we commemorate International Women's Day, which falls on March 8th every year, and the fact that March is also known as Women's Month. We talk about the women who have made a deep impact in our personal lives. We hope you can use this episode to reflect on the women who have touched your lives throughout the years. I also give a quick update on some health issues I had going on in the last few months. So get nice and cozy as this episode starts now. Hello, Leonie.
Hello, Mary. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you. How's everything?
Everything is good. It's been a few weeks since we've had our chit-chats.
That's right.
Anything new to report on your end?
It's been so long. It's been so long that I'm like, I forgot what I was doing anymore. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I used to talk to Mary.
Oh, stop it. I see you've been doing some photography.
Yes. Went out with one of my best friends. Her and I were hanging out at Descanso Gardens. Took my camera, which I've not picked up in 3 years. And I realized that I no longer have muscle memory for the camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, shooting a picture and then holding a gun. It's the same thing. You practice so much, right? That you hold this very heavy lens, heavy camera. You have to hold it very, very steady, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed I don't have that anymore because I've not been doing photos in like 3 years, So
yeah,
it was a struggle. I was not happy. Like I walked away. I thought it would be something that would be calming for me because it always has been. And all of a sudden it's like I walked away stressed, So it's baby steps. I have to like build up that muscle memory so I can, feel like, okay, my fingers know what they're doing and my arm knows what they're doing and the photos look great,
Yeah.
But it's been fun.
Yeah. Well, that's good. The pictures look nice to me when I saw them. So
thank you. Just trying, there's some flowers blooming. So I'm just trying to photograph a few things up close, trying something different,
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that they were nice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
So I want to say the biggest news I have is for those of you who don't follow me on Instagram, I had or maybe don't know me personally. Leonie knows, obviously. I had like an irregular heartbeat in December. They weren't palpitations, but almost like at rest, I could feel like a thump. Like one of my heartbeats just felt like my heart was trying to like jump out of my chest. But I wasn't like tachycardic or, my heart rate wasn't low.
Right.
So I noticed it, and then I noticed that it was happening every day for like a whole week. So I think I had emailed my doctor. Again, no, it wasn't chest pain. It was just every once in a while I felt like one of the beats of my heart was like my heart was trying to come out of my chest.
Right.
It's the only way I can explain it. And I would be at rest. So the doctor basically said, if you still have this, you should go to urgent care. So I went to urgent care and they did an AKG on me. And they quickly realized I had an abnormal heartbeat. And they told me it was very frequent. And usually when people report having what I have, sometimes they would go to the doctor and everything's fine because it would come and go.
Right.
So they said it was benign and that I should just cut off like caffeine. And they asked me if I drank like energy drinks. And I remember speaking to Leonie about this. And I was like, no, I don't. But I would make my coffee really strong, have like 3 cups a day. Then in my mind, or, I'm out working. I might be like, oh, I'm feeling tired. I'm going to go get, a cappuccino. That's with espresso, right? Then I'd come home and be like, oh, well, I don't want to drink coffee, so I'm going to have tea, black teas, and they all have caffeine,
Right.
So that's the only thing I could think of is that I was definitely taking a lot of caffeine. So they made me wear a heart monitor, and then they also did an echogram. But in the echogram, they found that I had fluid around my heart. Very small, but it was concerning enough because I was so young. So they did all these tests to make sure that I didn't have something else going on in my body.
Right.
to see. But by this point, I wasn't feeling those palpitations, and I used to work out a lot, so I was too scared. And it was around the time that I don't watch the show Sex in the City, but I have a Peloton. So it was around the time that the main
Right.
character, Mr. Big, died of a
Yeah.
heart attack on
Right.
his Peloton. And I'm here dealing with this heart stuff. So I got scared and I was like, I'm too scared to work out. Like it really affected me, guys, because we only have one heart, right? And I was like, I'm going to fucking drop dead. Who's going to find me? Like, what if I die on the bike? It was just it really freaked me out. um, so the more I started reading into it and I started talking to people, certain people had similar situations. They're, again, PVCs are considered benign, but they're chronic. Certain things can trigger them, whether it's caffeine for some or just stress for others. So the more I started looking into it, a lot of people live with it, and sometimes they go away. There's different types of surgeries, there's different types of medications. But they felt that because I said I'm choosing not to, because they quickly want to put you on a medication.
Right.
I said no. I want to see if I can just, by cutting back on the caffeine and doing all this other stuff, help. And I haven't had them since. All my workups have been normal. I did my echogram; it was normal. The fluid was gone. The nurse even asked me if they had given me a diuretic. Sometimes people are given a diuretic to help
Yes.
flush it out.
Right.
I said no. I said no to all the meds. Um, so everything has resolved itself. But I am a little like scared now, that something could happen, something could trigger it. I started working out again, started slowly working and up to a more rigorous, uh, not rigorous. I would work out really hard. Anyways, the point is everything came back normal. And so I wanted to thank everyone who's checked in on me. Um, that I appreciate those who have been diagnosed with the same thing. Also let me know that they're fine and they've had it for 10, 20 years. One person was like, I did a lot of coke in my life and I'm alive and I have it and you should be fine, is what he said.
I love that.
So yeah, so I was like, well, that's reassuring.
Right.
But that's the biggest thing I can report, is that I was not in a good mental. When I say I wasn't a good, all my friends would say I was the same, except for those who were really close to me. I really told them how freaked out I was, that I was going to drop dead. So obviously I'm going to be very, now I know that I have to at least listen to whatever my heart feels, and I'm a little paranoid now, but yeah, I'm okay. So everything came out okay. So as of last week. So I thought I'd share.
I'm very glad to hear the news. I mean, it's of course, we're all concerned for you, and these things happen in life. I know
Yeah.
that the same condition happened to actually one of my professors in college. And he was a younger guy too, and we were all shocked. And it was a very similar condition, and he walked away, and they were like, "Nope, it's nothing. Just
Yeah.
But
Apparently, too, a lot of athletes get it.
yeah,
When I was doing research, a lot of cyclists get it. And
yes,
so I was kind of annoyed. Obviously, I'm Pelotoning. I'm doing 10, 15 fucking miles,
right,
burning more calories than I'm taking in. It's just like, anyways, um, my frustration, I'm not trying to like talk. The doctors have been great in ordering all these follow ups, but it was just like when I would ask them, should I not be working out? Should I not this? They never really, they were like, no, you're fine, you're fine. But then my research would show otherwise. And I'm very skeptical. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I just decided to cut back on working out and letting the heart heal. And the point is, now I feel comfortable and I'm back on the bike. But I'm going to listen to myself, and any kind of irregularity, I'm going to take it easy. So if my heart rate starts going in the red, I slow down.
that's good,
People are trying to like, people, we're all competitive, right? And
right,
so I'm like, oh, I'm hitting the red. I better slow it down, my heart rate down. But
right,
other than that, I'm just happy to be alive. I'm happy to be here again. And again, it was kind of an emotional roller coaster that I kind of didn't share with everyone, even my loved ones. Like I kept it from my mom for a while too. And I would always try to minimize how scared I was, but I was scared shitless.
Look,
But I'm fine
look,
as of now.
you know
Yeah.
me. I always like to joke around, but you can't keep that from me, Mary, because if something's gonna happen, I want the Peloton bike. So don't keep that from me, okay?
Okay. Asshole. Asshole.
You're gonna be fine. You're gonna live to be a freaking old lady, and
I hope so.
I will know you when we're 80, or cats or some shit or whatever.
Yeah.
So
So, this episode today is March 8th, right?
yes,
And today is the International Women's Day. So I thought we would kind of do a little episode on this day. Although I will be publishing after the fact, I thought we would discuss this.
it's fantastic.
Yes. So it is no secret that the future is female and that the month of March is marked as Women's History Month across the globe. And today basically is the International Women's Day, which commemorates the cultural, political, and socioeconomic achievements of women. The day marks a call to a gender equal world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, and one that is diverse, equitable, inclusive, while differences are valued and celebrated. Do you know the history of this day?
I don't.
No?
No, I don't actually.
So, I'm going to share. According to the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, International Women's Day first emerged from the activities of labor movements at the turn of the 20th century across North America and Europe. The first National Women's Day was observed in the U.S. on February 28th in 1909, which the Socialist Party of America dedicated in honor of the 1908 garment workers strike in New York, where women protested against harsh working conditions. I had never heard of this.
Hmm.
In 1917, women in Russia chose to protest and strike under the slogan "Bread and Peace" on the last Sunday of February, which actually fell on March 8th on the Gregorian calendar. Their movement ultimately led to the enactment of the women's suffrage in Russia. It was in 1945 that the Charter of the United Nations became the first international agreement to affirm the principle of equality between women and men, but it was only on March 8th during International Women's Year in 1975 that the UN celebrated its first official International Women's Day. Later, in December 1977, the General Assembly adopted a resolution that proclaimed a United Nations Day for women's right and international peace to be absorbed on any day of the year by member states, in accordance with their historical and national traditions. Finally, following its adoption by the United Nations in 1977, International Women's Day became a mainstream global holiday where member states were invited to proclaim March 8th as an official UN holiday for women's rights and world peace. Now, obviously, it's garnered so much more attention since social media and Instagram has come around, right?
Right.
And we all know historically, I guess, all the things that women have had to deal with in different countries, the voting rights, women had to get permission from their husbands to get a fucking credit card or a bank account back in the day, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, yes, there's a lot of stuff that we still need to work on. There's a lot of negative stuff still out there, but I thought we would at least talk about the people that we are happy and would like to talk about on this Women's Day, International Women's Day of the world, I guess you can say. And especially, we're with, not to go into politics, but with the whole Ukraine, Russia, NATO, all this shit going on, I thought we would keep it positive and talk about positive women.
Yes. Positive women.
Yes. So do you have anyone in mind you want to talk about?
Somebody from history, right? Well, I'm going to start
or
off.
It can be someone you know.
Well, I will get to somebody we know, okay, eventually, right? But I think, when I look at people in history that have played important roles, like those are people that when I say people, I mean women. We're talking about women here, women that have a special place in my heart. And very specifically in my field. Because they've done some
Mm-hmm.
amazing things that without them we wouldn't be here today. Without them in science and medicine. But aside from before getting there, the first one I'd like to mention is our first lady, Dr. Jill Biden.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's to this day she's a professor of English at Northern Virginia Community College in Delaware. She's the first lady not to be in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense. She's chosen to, hey, I have students I'm going to teach. And I think that's very admirable that she cares about education, her students. You know, she's worked very hard. In her career, she's worked her way to all these degrees and got a PhD in education, and now she's a professor at a college, and and you know the wife of our president. And
Mm-hmm.
it's something I admire. I admire somebody like her who, to this day and age, when she could be in retirement, she could be just at the White House, just going to grade schools and talking to teachers like they all do, or businesses and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But no, she's like, I still care about education and what kids are learning in college, at these young ages of 18, 19 years old and all that. So I admire that. That's the first person on my list. How about you?
First person on my list is my grandmother from my dad's side.
Nice.
Um, I never met her. She died when I was maybe 10, 11, 12. I'm not
Mm.
really sure. She obviously lived in El Salvador.
This is your
My
dad's
parents,
mom, right?
my dad's mom, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So I didn't know much about her. My dad was very close to his grandmother. So I knew more about Mama Maria, which I also have one of her moles on my face in the exact same place. So Mama
Oh,
Maria. But
that's funny.
so I didn't really know much about my grandmother. So one of my uncles came from El Salvador to visit, and he basically had filled me in on some history, family history that I had no idea about. My dad came to the U.S. after, during the Civil War in El Salvador, which was in, I'm not sure if it started in the late 70s, but it's definitely going on in the early 80s.
Right.
So my dad and some other of his brothers and cousins basically fled and came to the US and got amnesty here because of the Civil War.
Right.
So I've come to find out in the last 2, 3 years when one of my uncles who still lives in El Salvador, basically my tío Nelson, told me the history of what my grandmother was doing during the Civil War is she would give refuge and hide men that were being sought after by the guerrillas
Right.
to be killed. And she would give them safe haven, the in between, and then sneak them out so that they can flee.
Wow.
And I had no idea. And I was like, wow, that to me is admirable. Like, I was like, wow. And she was known in their town for that. Obviously, she died. I've never met her, like I said, just because I myself have never been there to visit. But she died when I was really young as well. So I thought I would pay homage to her. And how badass is that?
That's
I
amazing.
think that's pretty fucking
No, that's
badass.
amazing. Yeah, that's amazing because I'll tell you this. What she did, she would probably be executed on the spot if they found out what she was doing. So that took an amazing amount of courage to do that for strangers, right?
Mm-hmm.
People she
Yeah.
didn't know. It's not family. These are people that she was helping.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean to save a life, right? Because there's always sides, right? There's one side or another, right? Whether you agree or don't agree, whatever. There's still a human
Right.
being, right? It doesn't matter what side. They're still human, and maybe they're fighting for survival. Maybe they're fighting because they believe whatever. Maybe they're told to fight, whatever. But the point is that she went out of her way, and in a war torn country, and bad things, very bad things would have happened to her if they had found out what she was doing. So to have that courage and strength to do that to help these people, that's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also brings up something, it just came into my head is if you guys have been online, obviously we talked again, not to politicize this or anything, but the Ukraine and Russian war. Ukraine basically women were joining the force, and I was reading that 30% of their force is like women.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty, like, we're just so used to seeing men out there risking it. There are women, obviously, even here in the States that are in the military. But when I read that, I mean, they're all going through a lot, both sides. So I, hope that all the women in the military make it out alive and are okay.
Yeah.
So respect.
Yeah. A lot of respect there. I follow that story very, very closely because I know people out there, and yeah, to hear these stories about these women, that's a lot of courage and that's a lot of respect. And that's something we have not seen in our lives. This is new. This is new because remember, these are not terrorists. These are not people that are told to fight wholly. Like it's your duty to go pick up an arm and kill. It's like no, they just lost their apartment building, their career, their life, their school, their job, their family. Maybe they believe they're going back because they believe in their country. They believe in the right thing to do, and it's like that's admirable, man. That's huge.
Yeah. So, anyone else you want to bring up?
Oh my god. I would say my both of my grandmothers. I'm gonna say both of them
Oh.
because both of them raised me. This, a lot of people don't realize this. When I was born, my dad was still in the Navy, so he'd be out there in the Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom was learning English and she was going to school for cosmetology. She's learning how to cut hair and color hair and all that shit. But I was raised by both my grandmothers. Now, keep in mind that one only spoke Italian. That's all she spoke. Never spoke English. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one only spoke Spanish and only spoke Spanish, never spoke English. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they both lived next door to where I used to live. So they both, took care of me as a kid, they helped raise me, and that's why English is actually my third language because I learned Italian and I learned Spanish first.
Mm-hmm.
And these were women who were never educated, never had opportunities in their country, because they both grew up on farms in their country. And each of them had a lot of kids.
Yeah.
My grandmother, from Mexico is of Aztec blood, and she had 11 kids, and my grandmother in Italy, she had 6 kids. So they each had a lot of kids to grow up with. And they both came here, and they had to deal with things here, problems here, like the Great
Mm-hmm.
Depression, like the 1950s, and trying to assimilate, trying to my dad immigrated here as a young kid as well, and my mom, as an adult. But the fact that they, like it's so amazing that we are so used to life here, right? We're so comfortable with life, and people talk about, oh, well, let's have a baby. Like, imagine having a baby and then you have to leave everything behind to go to a new country with nothing.
Yeah.
Like, and then you have to start that life all over as a young adult or middle-aged adult, whatever, and take care of all these kids. And I can't imagine doing that in this day and age.
Yeah. I'm with
So
you.
I have a lot of respect for them. I always did. I love them so much, and it's just something that because they didn't just raise me; they raised their own kids. They raised a bunch of other kids, that were around my time. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just grateful that I was allowed to be there, to be raised by them because I do have fond memories, you know, of them, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of glad that you brought that up because then I want to pay respects to my mother and my grandmother from obviously my mom's mom.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was murdered.
Oh damn.
Yeah, I know it sounds terrible. What's going on with my family? I swear it's the last name.
You're right.
So my grandfather was murdered. And so she ended up, being a single mother of four, working, when I hear the stories that she would bring like leftover foods from where her employer was, because she worked for like a prominent family.
Right.
And my mom said she would bring like bread, like little basic stuff. And so she was able to raise my mom and my uncles, and they've done pretty well for themselves in comparison to where my grandmother was at. My grandmother is going to turn 99. Or is it
Wow.
89? No, I'm lying. She's going to turn
Okay.
89.
Still, that's
89.
great.
Yes, she's turning 89, so I will be seeing her this weekend. My
Nice.
grandmother looks a lot younger than she looks, than she is, excuse me.
Right.
So yeah, she's badass. She's still very we're all a lot like her. She's like the matriarch of the family. All the
Right.
women were very strong-willed. I can tell you that. Same with my mother, and that I wanted to bring her up as well, is that, you know, my strong personality comes from the women in my family. And so when I say strong, I'm not difficult. And you know that, Leonie, I'm not difficult, but I will stand my ground if need be.
Hold on, I'm choking. Oh wait, can you repeat what you just said? I didn't hear that, Mary. Just making sure.
I'm not difficult, but
Oh,
I
okay, yeah.
will
Uh-huh.
stand my
Sure.
ground.
Right.
Get you later.
I respect you. I'm joking. I know.
So yeah, so I wouldn't be who I am without these two ladies in my life. And, you know, I'm still blessed to have my grandmother. She's the only grandparent I've ever met because all of the other ones had passed. So she means the world to me. And
Yeah.
so we will be celebrating her birthday, even if it's just ordering takeout and just hanging out with her. So
That's all that matters, man.
yeah,
That's fantastic. It's all I can hope for is, she's at a good age and still in good health and, hopefully stable,
yeah.
at least
I mean, she's
stable.
stable, but
Yeah.
she's definitely, you know, she's 89. So it's
Yeah.
definitely conversations have been brought up in our family. But, you know, we'll see.
At
She's
least,
still out there walking and
these are good times to enjoy those other conversations, about, hey, what were those days like? What were those times like? Talk about some
yeah,
family memories. Cause that's the stuff that goes away once they're not here anymore. And that's the stuff where you're
yeah,
like, oh man, I wish I could hear another story.
yeah,
And I've heard a lot. I'm blessed. I've heard so many stories and I still continue to hear them because I hear them from my mom every day,
yeah.
or,
And you're very lucky because I can tell you from my family, they didn't archive a lot. When I maybe that's not the right word, but it's like, oh, you asked my grandmother. Oh, I don't know. They just didn't really archive stuff. So I'm one that hoards pictures and I'm always taking pictures and videos when I travel because I don't want to not keep track of everything. So my family's notorious for not, and I'm referring to my mom's side. Um
that's good
so
though. That's good that you do that because it's in the moment it makes no sense or it's just a tiny little thing. But
yeah,
later,
right. People are
later you're
like,
gonna be
"Oh, she's taking
so
pictures
yeah.
again."
You're gonna be so thankful later that you have those pictures.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense later. Right now it's like, oh, whatever. But later it makes a lot of
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I told one of my girlfriends. We travel a lot. And she's like, I don't want to take pictures. And I was like, no, I'm taking pictures and videos. This is for you to look back and be like, hey, I went there. I did that. It's like, stop, get over yourself. Like,
Right.
I'm recording, period. So that's just me only because I want to have something where people can look back and be like, you know, whether it's my brother's kids, like, oh, wow, this was them when they were young, this and
Right.
that. So, but yeah, so yeah. Anyways, anyone you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, since you mentioned your grandma, your mom, I'll also mention my mom, of course. It's an obvious thing we want to talk about our moms, right? I mean,
Right.
um, my she's always been an amazing woman, and she's been somebody of character and strength for me. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what's weird about this, and I know people may not believe me, but my mom, as long as I've known her, she's never used a four-letter word in her life.
What?
Never, never.
Wow.
And she speaks English. She speaks English well, and she's just, you know, she's been through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She's known having nothing. She's known being poor on a farm to coming to this country, learning English, getting educated, working in the cosmetology business, and then owning her own business for 35, 37 years, you know. So in her, she lived the American dream, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She made it from nothing, absolutely nothing, and yet she was able to still, help raise me and my younger sister, and we turned out fine.
Yeah.
I wish I had a good story for you to tell you that, hey, I had a life of crime. I did this. I did. You know what? No, I have a boring story.
It's not fun.
It's it's
It boring is good though.
well, see, you and I have
Yeah.
something very similar because we both grew up, in similar situations, where
Mm.
I grew up in a very bad neighborhood, and my parents didn't have much at the time, to get out of that situation,
Yeah.
but they knew the right words, the wisdom. They knew the things to say and the things to do to keep me away from trouble.
Yeah.
And for me, it was studying. That's why I'm a nerd, and sports, you know.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for those two things, like I would be like I'd still be locked up in prison for doing something horrible. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But they were, she was an amazing mom, and to this day, even though she has health problems, like it doesn't stop her, you know. Like she's still like, I gotta go do this, and she's out there, jumps in her car and
Yeah.
she goes to take care of it, goes to help somebody, and I'm like, whoa, I'm like, slow down, I'm like, what.
That's my grandma.
And I know she's not comfortable, and I know she's hurting,
Yeah.
but she's like, oh no, I have to go help your uncle, your aunt, or this, and I'm like, hey, like, they got people, they can, I'm like, what are you doing. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just who she is, and that's how her family is, and how it's a whole generation that was molded like that, and it's admirable because that's what it gives me strength. It's always given me strength. Every time in my life when I was tested, and I'm still being tested right now today, but when I was tested in some very, very dark times, that gave me strength. The fact that, I can always look at her and think of every lesson that she taught me, and you know what? That's what got me off the floor, got me to stand up again, and got me to keep going.
Yeah.
So, you know, aside from just being like saying that, hey, she loved us and gave us everything, and like, no, I mean, she could only give us what she could give us. And
Yeah.
and I grew up with that, and I admire that, and I love her so much for that, and it's you know there's just so much admiration I have for her because this is how I turned out because of her, and I if my life ended tomorrow, I'm gonna say, hey, you know what, I lived the good life. Maybe I didn't accomplish 3 or 4 things that I wanted to, but
Mm-hmm.
she helped give me a good life.
Yeah.
So, there's just so much love and admiration there for her. But
Yeah. And I really like that we are talking about our moms, and our grandmas and
yeah,
yes, there are women out there who are famous, historically. But I mean, it comes down to our households, right?
of course.
The women and the men are being raised, by women and men, of course.
Yeah,
Not, let's not make it just about the women, but, a lot of who we become and a lot of how society is hopefully being molded more now with um, like women's touch, because we're still living in a male dominated world, but we are seeing changes in the way you, Leonie, or other men see women and women's rights. And so I feel like, yes, there are steps back in certain countries, but I feel like overall, we've come a long way. And I hope that me as a tia is auntie for those who don't speak Spanish, maybe I can be someone that my nieces and nephews learn something from that can bring positive to them. That's what I'm trying to the I guess the imprint that I'm trying to leave,
right.
because I see how, even though my grandma or my mom, they weren't perfect, they have their defects, they made me who I am, and I'm so happy to be who I am.
Right.
I wouldn't change anything. that I know this goes for every family out there, right? There's a grandma or a great grandma or an aunt or just a family friend that was family that she helped you or she made you understand or she made you feel this, or she made you understand why this is, and it's just to thank every single one of them, and if you're a woman, right? I hope that people tell you not just today, not just this month, right?
Right.
Why they appreciate you, and I really do hope that if there are people out there who don't feel that way, that I do hope that they know that they are loved. Again, trying to keep it uplifting, even though I know there's still violence against women, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I just want us to remember every single woman, every single struggle historically, and those that we're still going through. And see if we can, hopefully add more positive to all these struggles that people go through. So,
Yeah. And, like you mentioned that, a lot of these struggles, they start at home, you know, and, if they're not corrected, at home, if there isn't, involvement, from the parents I'm gonna say, hey, the mom, the mother role,
mm-hmm.
which is a very, very important role. If there's no involvement, kids turn out bad sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you, look, my mom, because my dad was here, then not here, then gone and back and gone back, and that was his career. I understood, but my mom was always here for those moments in my life where it came down to dating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or how to treat a woman, and she always instilled, this is how you treat people with respect.
Yeah.
Always, you're not gonna do this, you're not gonna do that, and if somebody needs help, you will help them, and that, that's why I've never had a bad situation with a woman,
Yeah.
like I'm not a bad person. I've never attacked anybody. I've never forced myself on any girl ever, it's a thing where it's like, hey, personally, I might be into this girl, like
Yeah.
really, really, really want her, and maybe things are maybe supposed to happen, but it's like, hey, you know, I knew from an early age that it's like you respect, if they say no, that means no. If they say, hey, let's stop, or whatever, that means stop. There's no questioning that. There's no
Mm-hmm.
acting out on that. There's no pushing, there's no shoving, there's no pulling, there's no hitting ever. That is not something that happened in my family, or that's something that happened in happened a lot out there in the communities, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I learned that from my mom. It's like how to treat a person, and more specifically, she's talking about women.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Yeah.
grateful for those conversations that happened at all these different points in my life,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. It's funny
it's
that you said that, like how to treat a woman, because I remember telling my brother that uh, years ago. It's like treat girls the way you want men to treat me.
right.
You
That's
know, and
that's a very
when
good
you
point.
when you said that, I was like, oh, it sounds kind of like what I was telling my brother when he was growing up and starting to date. I was like, dude, you got to treat women the way you would want. Don't treat a woman how you don't want me to be treated.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my brother. I love him. But yeah, so I really enjoyed this episode talking about, I guess it ended up being the women in our lives. And I hope that you guys enjoyed listening to
Yeah.
our admiration for
I
the
have
women in our
I
life.
have one more, if you don't mind me.
Oh, no, not at all. Go ahead.
This is this one's also very important to me, and this is gonna this is somebody, her name is Mary, and
Oh,
she has this little podcast, but no, look, Mary, this is a tribute to you, because you are an amazing woman. I know your life story, and I can relate to some of it, because we both came from similar backgrounds, and we had
yeah.
tough situations growing up and all that, which made it tougher for our opportunities, to easily flourish in life, whether it's education or jobs or whatever, but you made a
Mm-hmm.
great career for yourself, and you've established yourself as a professional, with a loving heart, and you care, and not just about, the patients you see, but you care deeply about your family and your friends and your loved ones, and you treat me with so much respect and so much admiration, and it's something that I want to tell you that I absolutely admire that about you. And I wish more women were like you. It's as weird as that
Aw,
sounds. I mean,
I'm gonna cry.
no, it's just, look, honesty here, because it's a strange world, and people can always be kinder, and people can always be better, and I'm grateful that I know you as a very, very good woman. I'm very grateful for our friendship, and I just want to say thank you.
Oh, well, uh, well, those are really kind words. You caught me off guard. Those are really kind words. And, I'm a work in progress, so I'm always trying to better myself. But when you say stuff like that, it makes me feel that at least I'm on the right path of
You're doing good.
being a good person.
You are.
Again, we all work on ourselves, but thank you, Leonie. Those were really nice words.
You're welcome.
So thank you everyone for listening, and tell those you love, the women in your life, whether it's a teacher or just, someone that you knew in the past, reach out to them, tell them how they made you a better person, or how certain experiences made you see the world in a better light. Use that time to reflect, because, yes, we will thank our moms or grandmas, right? But sometimes it could have been a teacher. I'll never forget Sister Donna, my first grade teacher. I went to private school, Catholic school, and I always remember Sister Donna for some reason. She was just really bubbly, So
Right.
just think of the people that molded you, whether it was through one life experience or through several, because we don't realize how women touch our lives sometimes and mold us, hopefully for the better. Right. But definitely say thank you to all the women in your life, for whatever it is they bring to the table. And enjoy this month and enjoy this day. So thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Bye. That was episode 87 of the Purposely Curious podcast. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on most podcast platforms, and follow us on social media at Purposely Curious on Instagram and at Purposely C Pod on Twitter. That's Purposely the letter C Pod. Until next time, bye.